healing our souls takes time. And it's not just something we want to do once every couple of months. Life is hard and it rips at us and it tears at us. Life will just bruise you up. If you're out there living it, you're getting beaten up by it. Just the day in, day out, things at work, things at home, we get our feelings hurt. A lot of us, if we're trying to be mature, we don't want to answer back to that. We don't want to get fussy over it. But we better get where we can tell God about it. And so we're going to stuff it down. We think that's maturity. That is not maturity. Maturity is when we learn to let God get to us through and through. Intimacy is when I bring my hurt feelings right to the very throne of grace and I tell on somebody. Be a tattletale. That's part of intimacy. And you know, if I'll tell him, I won't be prone to tell somebody else. I won't tell my friend. I won't tell my buddy that I entrust some of those things to. Just tell it to God and then I'm done. Because I got it off my chest. We can get too busy to sense the tender care of Christ because tending takes time. Now I want you to look further with me. I want you to look at verse 41 because I think the wording here, especially regarding the original language, is so interesting. Remember that she has said, don't you care? Don't you care? See, a person that is that busy is detached from the tender care day in and day out of Christ. Don't you care that she has left me to do the work by myself? You tell her to help me. We'll find ourselves embittered toward people and frustrated toward people when we don't let him tend to our souls. And so Christ says, Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things. I want you to look first of all at that word upset because I find it interesting in the original language. It's got a Greek word that is highly associated with a Latin word. The Latin word is turba, T-U-R-B-A, and it means a crowd. It means a crowd. In other words, by being upset, it meant that she was crowded with many things that were upsetting her. A word picture we could put with that is that Martha had a crowd in her head. I wonder if you've ever had a crowd in your head. That even today, as much as you're trying to pay attention to the word, it may be that your mind is on 100 different things. 100 different people in your life that, what are they doing without me? I really need to hurry because how are they even operating at home without me? You know, this kind of thing. And we got this crowd in our head. All these things we're worried about at work. All these things that we're worried about at church. All the things we were worried about at home. And so every now and then you just want to go, what, everybody in there, just sit down. Everybody sit down. Can you relate to that? Sit down. Find a seat and sit. And said, you know what, stand up and get out. No, sit down. Give me 10 minutes with you, Sadie, please, please, please. This is more, just a turbocharged crowd in her head all the time. Look at the word worried, because I think there's somewhat of a wordplay that's going on here in the original language that we can't see in our English language. You can see it much better in the King James Version. I want you to see what she said. Lord, dost thou not care? The King James Version says, dost thou not care? Christ answers back, and I'm going to say it in the King James Version because you can hear the wording and what I think may be a play on words here. Christ answers back, Martha, thou art careful and troubled, and the essence is about many things. Thou art careful and troubled. That word, you are worried and upset, in the King James Version, it says, then, you are careful and troubled. She said, do you not care? And he says, you are too careful. But he's using a little bit different word that all comes from the same kind of root with some additions to it. I want you to listen to what he's saying. She says, she uses the word that means the tender care of, it means what you think of when you think of care and concern. In fact, in the Strong's definition, I find it interesting that it says, it matters. That she was basically saying to him, does it matter? And not just something as ridiculous as we might see in this scene, but anything. When was the last time you just wanted to ask him, does it matter to you? Does this even matter? I'm so frustrated over this situation, I don't know what to do. And I need to know, does this even matter to you? You know, I'm thinking about people that have just recently tuned in and are seeing this room spray on the screen. And they might need to know that Martha was the kind that used a lot of room spray if she had had it. That kind of personality that says, do you care about the things that drive me crazy? He answers back with a word that means something a little different. It means care, but it's care plus anxiety. She said, do you have tender care? Do I matter to you? He answers back, Martha, you have care all right, but your care is anxiety driven. You have care plus anxiety. I want to ask you a question today because particularly as I have the privilege to address many women in this audience, and our brothers can relate to this too, but girls, I'm going to tell you something. We are just imploding from anxiety, from trying to carry our entire worlds on us as a burden. And here's what began to dawn on me. What is it that makes our care anxious? We are told to care for one another. That word that is used there for care, for the tender care of Christ, is a word He would use for us. We are supposed to care. But when we slide into anxious care, that part of our care has become sin because we are to be anxious for nothing. In fact, that same verse in Philippians 4:6, and we're going to talk about it in just a few minutes, is using that same word that's right here in Luke chapter 10 for anxious care, anxiety-driven care. What is it that takes us to that step? I just want to get you thinking for a moment. I may be off base on this, but I have turned this every which way I could think to turn it. And here is what I come to every single time. We have real, live, authentic care for the people in our lives. That's a wonderful thing. We are supposed to. If we don't care, something is wrong with us. So that's legitimate. We have care. But when we slide into anxiety with our care, what is the root of it? I'd like to suggest to you that the root of it is our desire for control. Anxiety is always a control mechanism. It's something in us that is either trying to get control or feels like we have lost control. Address it every time. Check this out. See in your own life, the next time you feel the anxiety rise up within you, ask yourself, where is it I feel out of control? Because you will see it over and over again that there is an issue there over that very thing. Keith and I've come to the conclusion because